Two. Check. Check two. Check two. Hello. Hello, friends. Hello, chat. Hello. How are you doing? What is up? Incoming raw apology video. I'm gonna do a notes app. I'm gonna do a notes app apology. I'm gonna do a notes app apology. This is what it's come to. This is what things have come to here. Oh boy. Oh my goodness, folks.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Good morning, Rob. Good morning, chat.
Good morning, Plunger Man. Thank you very much, Plunger Man, for the 19 months resub at tier 2. Thank you, Plunger Man. Also, thank you to Cinnamon Challenge. Our friend Cinnamon Challenge, aka Sin Chow, who resubbed for 28 months at tier 3 when I wasn't even online. When I wasn't even streaming. It was an offline resub. Sin Chow doesn't care about the accolades. Doesn't care about the alerts. Doesn't need the shout out. Doesn't need the recognition. Well, she's getting it anyway. She's getting it anyway.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
TRRS shocked.
Thank you, Sin Chow, and thank you, Bonbon C3PO, for the 20 months tier 1 as well. Take the clout. Thank you, Bonbon. You'll take your clout and like it. How about that? How about that? The trickle down clout is non-optional, okay? It's non-optional. I'm off work right now, so you got an active line. Now that's good, Brian. Well, we got plenty to get into today, believe me. We got plenty of discourse to get into today. Take your goddamn clout, you little shits. Thank you. Oh boy, I'm just trying to take at least a couple moments before we get into any discourse here. I'm so tired. I barely slept at all last night. Forced clout delivery systems. Mandatory clout. Mandatory. This is non-optional. It's non-negotiable. No chit-chat. Only discourse. I don't even have much to chit-chat about anyways. What did I do? I watched NBA playoffs last night. Trae Young had a big performance. Ow. Trae Young with a big game-winning shot. Who else? Devin Booker had a very nice game last night as well. You've been consistently tired, fatigued, had a foggy mind for weeks now. Are you okay? I don't know, Diego. I mean, it's like I was saying, I have just been sick. I'm mostly over that. I have felt a lot of brain fog, which just doesn't seem to be lifting. Is that I was speculating on this the other day. Is that a long COVID thing, or am I just like that? You know, it's possible that I'm just like that now. I don't want to go in immediately suggesting that it's because of because of COVID or whatever, but I have felt generally tired, lethargic, I do have this brain fog. I'm having a more consistent time, difficult time finding the right words and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's I might just be.
You can count on me. You're gonna have.
I might just be tired. I might just be sick.
Through all this,
I've got a lot going on. You know. I have no idea. It could be the woke mind virus. It could be Havana syndrome. We don't know. Thank you, Diego, for the gifted sub. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Depression can do that sometimes. Well, Lord knows I got that too. Lord knows I got enough of that. Yeah, just the sleeping. Yeah, the lack of sleep really does a lot too. I stay up too late, and I just like, even when it's an option, I find I can't sleep in. Like, I went to bed so late. I went to bed at like 3 something last night because I just couldn't sleep at night. I have this ringing in my ears too. I don't know if that's just, I already had tinnitus, and I did see that there was like some kind of rumor going around or whatever that either COVID or the vax possibly is giving people like tinnitus, which I already had, but it has felt like almost debilitating lately. I mean, I try to close my eyes at night and I just hear like ringing in my ear. I have found that regularly not sleeping does not make things easier. No, it doesn't. So it's like I was up till 3, and then like my alarm was set for 7:30. Most of my own brain fog comes from reading Twitter too much. That'll do it too. That'll do it too. I need white noise. Yeah, I need like the TV on now. I need the TV playing in order to sleep. Yeah, major sleep debt. also smoking too much weed. No, I don't think that's it. I don't think that's the problem. I think that's okay, actually. I think it's fine to do that. So yeah, so my alarm was, I went to bed at like 3:50. Finally went to sleep at like 3:15 or so. My alarm was set for 7:30, and then I woke up like at 6 a.m. like on the dot, just like ugh, I felt like I was late. I felt like I was sleeping past my alarm, and woke up immediately at 6 a.m. with like a massive rush of adrenaline and was just awake. So I slept about like 2.5 hours. Yes, you can be addicted to weed, but I'm built different. There you go, Marina. That's me. Here's me. Maybe we're all overstimmed. That's part of it as well. I don't know. But either way, I've just been... Vaping is too easy. It is. I know. I enjoy it, but it is way too easy. I'm in bumfuck Iowa. The weed is super necessary. Not addicted to it. I like not feeling scared and angry. Yeah, it's nice, you know? It is nice. They didn't make it too convenient. And like it doesn't smell like anything. I can just do in my apartment, I can just kind of like watch the NBA and just do that, which is lovely. You know, I enjoy that. I was talking the other day about how in the mornings usually when I sit down and like the sun is streaming into the office, and when you get the sunbeams coming in with the vape cloud, wonderful. Wonderful. I love it. Is it contributing to my brain fog? I don't know. Possibly. I don't think so, but I'm not going to rule it out. Excuse me. I've been vaguely sick in the same way for over a month now. Is it long COVID? Is it a new weird cold? Are we just like this now? Who can say? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely did have a bad cold. Which I'm getting over, but the fatigue and the brain fog just doesn't seem to want to go away. Morning coffee and dope is such a delightful treat. It is. I mean, it's lovely. The God vape rays will bring the morning motivation to deal with dumb shit. Yeah. Very enjoyable. Very enjoyable. But yeah, overall, it has felt like a couple months of pretty severe brain fog. I know, just like getting through the winter and getting into like the new season where you're actually getting some vitamin D and some sunlight. You know, the winter is really difficult, especially here, where you feel like you don't see the sun for like months. It's late stage capitalism brain fog as well. Everything's just depressing. I did see where Sean McKelvey said all the Zoomers that work for him are bisexual and have long COVID. I did see that, yeah. Weird guy. Weird guy, that Sean McKelvey. I saw the thing too about he was with like a woman or something, like, and he was like trying to put on something romantic, and he put on like Ted Kennedy's speech from RFK's funeral or something. Strange man, very strange man. You gotta wonder if he's getting any legal trouble for some of the nefarious shenanigans there that he was up to. His crypto ties to SBF. Having getting back into nature this spring, highly recommended. Yeah, I think I definitely need it. I definitely need to devote time each day to being outside a little bit and getting a little bit of exercise. This winter was really rough for that. And I'm getting old now as well, so it's like I can't just like shrug it off anymore. I can't just shrug it off, oh, I'm better now, and just go and party all night. It's like now it becomes like a fucking deficit. I'm off to the Canadian wilderness for a week. Oh, that's going to be nice. That's going to be nice, Marina. Where are you going? I've been getting to skate park like 4 or 5 nights a week for a few hours. It really helps. I've been saying for like 3 years, like on this stream, that I got to get back into hooping. I've tried to make a hooping commitment to people in this community, and I've failed each and every time. Now, of course, my knee and my legs and feet are all getting fucked up as well, because again, I'm old. I don't know, folks. Twitch stream hoops from the park. I would love to do that. Honestly, I would love to do that. I'd probably humiliate myself. If I tried to do it now, I would just instantly humiliate myself. I would be keeled over within about 5 minutes of hooping. Just like spitting and puking and crying on the court. And you'd all be laughing at me. No one would be supporting me. You'd all be laughing. Look at this joker. Look at this guy. What he just did doesn't even qualify as exercise. This man can't even handle it. He can't even handle one moment of anything resembling physical activity. God, I'm very unhealthy. I am physically and mentally unhealthy, folks. And I'm not doing anything to deal with it. It's not a good situation. I need to fucking work on this. So yeah, I'm fucking tired. Who knows how long I'm gonna be able to do this again today. Part of the reason was, I was like trying to sleep, but because of this tweet that I did, everyone, well, not everyone, but like people started like yelling at me on Twitter and getting mad at me, which is like fine. That's fine. I'm pretty used to that. I've got like a fairly thick skin, or at least I used to. But because there's like certain people that have like gone beyond like criticizing takes, or just being like, hey, fuck you, or hey, you're Canadian, or whatever it is. And there's certain people that have like actively tried to like fuck with me and mess with my life to the point that I have like lingering trauma left over from it. So now when people are like yelling at me, I have this like anxiety response because I don't know if that's going to like pick up again, which is like probably not very healthy either. And then I'm like just scrolling Twitter and anxious and like not sleeping. It is a deeply hostile environment. It is. I know you've been experiencing that, and you've experienced that in the past as well, Marina. Yeah, I saw that. That's the check mark thing. What the fuck? People are just like not doing well. People are just not doing well. But that's what I mean. It's like I can handle if people are just like, "Hey, fuck you, I don't agree with you," or "You're stupid," or whatever. That's fine. Like, yeah, it's exactly. I need to add the "be nice to me" disclaimer again. It's on my. I re-pinned it. It's my pinned tweet again. It's still people are not following this, but I can handle people being like saying mean shit to me. It's because I know that there are these people that are in the past have elevated that to this like totally fucking disproportionate, like out of pocket bullshit. So I have a hard time now separating when people are just like criticizing a stance that I've taken, but I have this like fear or this anxiety that the other shoe is going to drop. So it makes me really like physically uncomfortable. It's not from Canada. It's exactly, Sean. Exactly. And listen, that I find that shit annoying, but it's fine. If people want to just like, anytime I say anything that people don't like about America, they go, "Oh, you're Canadian." Like, okay, that's fine. We've been over that, I think, a number of times. Why I think that's a pretty silly criticism. All these very people, these chauvinistic Americans who like bring this out anytime I say one thing that they don't like about American politics, funnily enough, don't seem to have any qualms with commenting on politics in other or news events happening in other countries. They'll talk about stuff going on in Israel or China or Russia or Latin America and don't seem to have they don't live in those places. They don't live there. But it doesn't stop them from commenting on political events that are happening there, strangely. But it's like the moment that I say one thing about American politics that these people disagree with, it's just like, fuck you, you don't live here. As if we don't all, as if Canada itself, first of all, isn't like this like vassal, this like northern resource colony of the United States, first and foremost. As if the United States doesn't export its culture and its economy and its political system all over the planet at gunpoint. Snotty behavior is one thing. There are actual freaks out there that will try to ruin your life over posts. It's not indicative of a healthy social society. No, it's not. No, it's fucking bizarre. Is it because you aren't suffering as much as us? Living in America is hellish. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess that's part of it. I don't disagree with that. I know people in America are suffering, and I know you're not like trying to dunk on me or anything. And no free will, but I mean, I think that's the point. Like, America is the hegemon. It's the global hegemon. You know, it's the leader of the free world. It has been for my entire life. Canada is both a victim of that and a junior partner in that. So it's like, yeah, people in Canada and from around the world are going to comment on things that happen politically in the United States. I mean, if you live in America, I think that's just something you have to deal with. It's such a loser opinion that people can only comment on their own countries, and all it does is show their ignorance of USA's massive influence everywhere. Yeah, well, again, all these same people, Diego, are more than happy to comment on political news in other countries. It happens all the time. People comment on the news in that is going on all around the world. Americans don't seem to see the disconnect. Like, if that's the rule, okay, you can only ever talk about politics in the country that you live in. You can only ever discuss the news and like geopolitical or whatever news that happen in the country you live in. Okay, fine. I don't think a lot of these like Americans that like yell at me over this kind of stuff actually abide by that. You know, it is American exceptionalism. It's just like it's chauvinism. All these people that are like leftists or call themselves leftists or socialists as well, but then one time you criticize America, they get out their fucking flag and start waving it around. You're like, you're not from here. These colors don't run or whatever it is. It's like, fuck. Calm down. People are so defensive. Is Trump good or bad as a non-American? I simply cannot say. No, you can't say anything about it. Can't say anything about it. The U.S. helps impose a regime of crushing neoliberal austerity on the entire world, but you can't talk about it. Exactly. And again, but these people, they'll talk about Ukraine. They'll talk about, Israel, Palestine. They'll talk about all kinds of other countries. Brazil. A lot of these people talking about Lula and Bolsonaro, Brazil. They don't live in Brazil. You live in like fucking Cleveland. Like, what do you have to do with Brazil? Why are you talking about Brazil? But these very same Americans that say this don't seem to see this disconnect. They talk about Corbyn. They talk about the UK. They make fun of British people. Do you live in the UK? No, you live in fucking Cincinnati. You know? The Social Democrats are the most nationalistic leftists that will ostracize you for any criticisms. Yes, well. All the social chauvinists are calling themselves Marxists now. Don't laugh. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I always pops me. Telling the UK to go fuck itself is the one right I hold dear as an American. And me too. I enjoy it as well. Like, Jesus Christ, like, what is this rule that you're not allowed to ever discuss what's going on in other countries? You know? It's so arbitrary. It seems to apply only to me. It's sometimes with some of these folks.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Diego, thank you for another gifted sub. Thank you. And Sean, so we'll look at this tweet that people were getting mad at in a moment, right? I'll call that up. But like to what Sean's saying there, the vote blue crowd I get, but the Bernie supporters being defensive was surreal. What do you want him to do? I don't know. Not endorse an incredibly unpopular goal, and like that's it. I wasn't even like.
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Ambigubot, thank you very much for the raid. Welcome, Ambigubot and Ambigubot Raiders. Welcome in. Thank you for joining. I'm just talking about a tweet that I did that made all kinds of people mad at me. How was your stream today? No, but to your point, Sean, what do you want him to do? I don't know, not endorse an incredibly unpopular goal. And I wasn't even saying like I want him to do anything, as we'll see when I look at this tweet in a moment. I wasn't saying I want him to do anything. And I understand that Bernie probably was going to endorse Biden. Can I maybe express some mild disappointment that this like big what seemed like it was a big transformative like energetic movement has like this is what it's turned into, of Bernie just instantly in moment one immediately endorsing Biden the moment he announces that he's running? I can't be like mildly disappointed in that, you know? The QTs and replies are a bad faith take Olympics. I didn't look at, like, I can barely look at any of it because it stresses me out too much. Again, I can deal with people just being mad at me over takes, but I have fucking leftover trauma from people taking that way, way, way too far. But yeah, I do get a lot of that though. Whenever these moments come up, it seems like people are just like bending over backwards to, anytime I say anything like this, bend over backwards to give it the most uncharitable reading as possible, or project all kinds of stuff that I wasn't saying into what I was saying. You know, it's like, it's amazing. Like, and we can look at it right now. Like, let's look at this tweet. Let's look at this tweet that people were getting mad at me about. Okay. Let's look at this tweet. So I think it's good to first play a little game of what does this tweet not say? What does this tweet not say? Does this tweet say that Bernie should run for president again? Bernie, the 81-year-old man, should run for president again? No. You'll notice that it does not. It says no such thing. Does it say that, like, I think Bernie should endorse Marianne Williamson? No, you will notice that it does not say anything like that. I will literally just, I saw this news about Bernie saying he's going to not run and he's going to instead endorse Joe Biden's reelection. And I just looked at this tweet from Bernie from when he was winning the primary, when he says, I've got news for the Republican establishment. I've got news for the Democratic establishment. They can't stop us. And I said, yeah, well, the narrator, they could, in fact, stop us. What is actually, like, what is the problem here? Like, genuinely, what are people so upset about here? You have Bernie like saying, I'm taking on the Democratic Party establishment. I'm taking on the Republican Party establishment. And then, 4 years later, instantly, the moment Biden says he's going to campaign again and run again, Bernie's like, Bernie, who's been like an enthusiastic supporter of Biden's agenda for the last several years now, since Biden was elected. And Bernie immediately says, like, yeah, no, I'm not going to challenge that in any way. I'm going to endorse Biden. And just comparing that and contrasting that with his statement from a few years ago when he's like, yeah, I'm going to take on the Democratic Party establishment. And they can't stop us. Like, very clearly, the establishment did stop the movement. That's like, I genuinely, really, oh, thank you for the nice reply from the Hot Take Appreciator. I genuinely, truly did not think that this was in any way controversial. Sometimes I say things that are deliberately provocative, I do. I'll cop to that. Sometimes I say things that are deliberately provocative. I did not think this was in any way controversial or something that like people were going to like get all fucking pissy about. Just drawing the contrast between Bernie saying, I'm going to take on the Democratic Party establishment versus being a loyal supporter of the establishment after being rat fucked by them on multiple occasions. You stoked the rad lib rage with anything less than flattering about Bernie. And like someone was pointing out too, like, if anything, your tweet was more critical of the Dem Party bullshit than Bernie, for sure. I mean, that's a big part of it. I got goosebumps from those political revolution ads. Those are his words. I know that's the thing. I'm sorry, but there's a palpable sense of disappointment between seeing Bernie now, even if you can say, like, well, he has to do this. There's all kinds of different ways you can justify it. But seeing this idea, like, we're taking on the establishment, it's a political revolution, this big, like, national campaign of millions of people getting super excited and energized by, versus this. And so we can't be, like, a little bit disappointed in that. We can't be mildly disappointed in this transition. Is that what people are saying? Because I don't live in America? People around the world loved Bernie for that exact reason, because they know how fucking horrid and corrupt the American government was and thought Bernie was maybe going to be able to influence that in a positive way. People around the world, people in Canada and around the world, were very excited by the Bernie campaign. People can't be a little bit disappointed that this is the way that it's turned out? Is like, seriously. Why are you as a Canadian so invested in the politics of the rapidly declining nuclear-armed global hegemon? Well, and carrier wave, like, I don't want to keep repeating this, but I'll just say again, all of these motherfuckers, these Americans, these like American chauvinists, like that's what they are, who say this the moment that I say anything that like displeases them. They talk about politics in other countries all the time. They talk about news that's happening in other countries. This rule, which again I think only applies to me, because I'm just like uniquely distasteful for some of these people. This rule that only applies to me, that you can only ever discuss politics in the country in which you live, which none of these fucking people abide by. Can anyone tell me what the my good friend Joe Biden BS actually got him? Well, and that's the thing. And like Bernie, after endorsing Biden, you know, he did take this point where he's going to be the kind of point man for this big transformative economic agenda, the Build Back Better framework, which, if it had been enacted, actually would have been a really amazing, positive FDR level, like economic agenda for America. But it didn't happen. Like Bernie's been out there like banging the drum for this in the media, really like trying to like get people on board with this. The Biden administration strung him along the entire way, and the rest of the squad and the rest of the whatever the progressive movement involved in the U.S. government strung them along the entire way, pulled the rug out from under them, gave Joe Manchin everything that he wanted, while doing nothing at all to like punish him or to do anything to really combat his intransience and his total willingness to just like tank their entire agenda. Bernie's been like a loyal supporter of that, and it's like they give nothing. Biden's moved tacked to the right on like every major issue, on immigration. He's breaking strikes. He's supporting endless proxy wars in Ukraine. Democrats actually rolled back the like meager safety net that was established under COVID, the child tax credit, et cetera, that was really genuinely affecting people's lives and lifting people out of poverty. Democrats rolled that back. The drilling in Alaska stuff. Yeah. There is no other candidate. Other progressives are too young, and if Warren isn't running, what's he supposed to do? He may also be fearful of how fascistic the right has become. You'll notice, though, again, that this tweet is not about, like, what should he do or what should he not do. It's literally just being like, hey, this kind of sucks. This is a little bit depressing. It's a little sad that this big movement turned into this, you know? Is that controversial? Really? Is that really so upsetting to people? Oh, this is kind of depressing. This is kind of a sad state of affairs. You know, I just find it fucking weird. I honestly do. I find it really weird how defensive people get about this. And another thing that people said is like, well, you're just like, the idea that it's just being funneled into the Democratic Party or whatever, it's just not accurate because you're not paying attention to these like state and local politics, and all these people that like were part of this movement that were trained in organizing are now organizing these local political movements, you know? And now they're like winning these big gains in these local communities. And it's like, okay. Like people have pointed to the Brandon Johnson campaign in Chicago as an example of this. They've pointed to that and like, would he be elected? Like, would he have won, or if not for these people from the Bernie movement that like were trained in organizing and have now like moved into local politics and winning these gains? It's like, okay, sure, that's great. But like, we're talking about a big national mass movement that had like Chris Matthews and these establishment media people shitting their fucking pants on television. Like, people don't see how that's different. It's wonderful that there's some progressives being elected in city councils and for mayorships and things like that. That's wonderful. That's great. But like, it's not this. It's clearly not the same thing. You know, it isn't. And we're going to see what the actual effectiveness is of people that are running on that kind of a platform and getting involved in local politics and finding out like what they're actually able to do. Is Brandon Johnson, if he is able to enact like progressive policy or do a great job, that'll be fantastic. Is he just going to get shut down by the police unions and the media as every other progressive figure that engages with this system does? I don't know. I feel like that's possible. You know? But do we not see how that's different? Like, I feel like I was being gaslit with some of these replies. Like, oh no, actually the progressive movement in America is just doing great. Like, really? Are we looking at the same country here? Like, I don't think the progressive movement in America is doing great. This idea that like this Bernie movement has just gone on to bigger and better things, I don't really think that that's accurate. It seems to me, from my ignorant Canadian perspective, that the country's actually headed in a really horrible direction. And that the progressive movement is actually not doing that well, considering the way that, again, just a few years ago, it did have this huge sense of like national momentum and excitement and energy, which is just completely dissipated now, partially because of this shit. USA is a full one democracy point behind Canada. We're allowed to be high and mighty. Get on our level. That's right. We saw the democracy index. Canada does at least 0.8 democracy more than America. And of course, Bernie needs to endorse Biden. Biden's got to defeat fascism. But look at what Biden has done, though. I actually agree that Biden probably is the lesser of two evils, you know? But like more money to police, endless funds to Ukraine, again, rolling back whatever meager social safety net was put in place during the pandemic. I think a lot of the people mad at you for being critical of Bernie immediately endorsing Biden are also very disappointed about it, but since so many of them see Bernie
This is
as
some
their
guy,
cool
Rob Russo, some
grandpa,
leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
who could do no wrong. They're projecting their rage toward people willing to be openly critical of him doing that instead. Hello, Lucid. Thank you for the raid. Thank you, Lucid. Listen, Lucid Raiders, thank you for joining us. We're just talking about some American politics right now. I do have to warn you, though. I am Canadian. Is that okay with you? I understand if it isn't. Believe me, it's not okay with me either. But apparently there's this rule that you're only allowed to ever talk about America unless you physically live within the border. You know? Otherwise, you're not allowed to. As I've been informed repeatedly from some of our social democrat colleagues and friends. Didn't Roe v. Wade get overturned and massive anti-trans legislation has passed, plus an insatiable thirst for the Ukrainian war? I mean, this is the amazing thing to me, Trey. I really have people like trying to like talk to me about how ignorant I am about this and trying to suggest to me that the progressive movement in America is just like doing great, doing all these great things. Like, is it? Again, I don't doubt that there's races going on where positive things are going on. There's been a few successes in certain like local political events or mayorships or city councils, whatever. That's great. You know, that's fantastic. But can we still be maybe a little bit disappointed in this like big mass movement that was being built that for a short brief moment actually did feel like it had this kind of like transformative or even revolutionary potential. And it's just been kind of diluted to Bernie just instantly agreeing to endorse Biden after Biden announces that he's going to run again. But old man have funny laser eye shirt on campaign website. Well, it was one of the guys that was coming after me was the inventor of the Dark Brandon meme. How many of these like former Bernie bros or social democrats have become like unironic Brandon bros here? That's like a whole other thing that seems to be going on. I don't know. And you know what? I love Bernie still. I do. I wouldn't be where I am today without Bernie. I think it's amazing what Bernie accomplished. I don't hate the guy. You know, in fact, I was one of those people that I think had a hair trigger and would instantly go off on anyone that was mildly critical of Bernie. But, you know, I've grown up a little bit since then. And it's like holding up these people as if they're just unassailable or beyond criticism, especially someone that's working in the United States government, you know, of all things, is not really healthy. You know, and I cop to spending time in the past where I think I probably did have probably unhealthy view of these things as well. I mean, unhealthy parasocial relationship. But it's like you have to move past that, though, don't you? When the facts change, my opinion changes. And you, sir? Again, I will always have a huge admiration for Bernie, huge respect for Bernie, who is definitely someone who was a major figure in my sort of political journey. There really was no disrespect intended even in this tweet. I'm simply like expressing a sense of like disappointment or frustration that this movement that did seem like it did have the establishment in the Democratic Party, in the media, they were scared. You know? They were. And Bernie, like this idea of we're going to take on the establishment, we're going to win a political revolution versus now what it is. Yeah, that's disappointing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all of my American social democrat friends who apparently think that this is totally great and that the American progressive movement or just the Western left in general is just in this great position now. I'm sorry to say, but I find it a little bit disappointing. Excuse me. I wonder how much COVID had to play in this. I mean, I definitely do think, Ambiguous, after the pandemic started, that it people's brains became like irrevocably broken. That seems like a big part of it. Canadian lefties are just seeing in Bernie the same thing that the NDP has done since Jack Layton. Yeah, and I think Bernie had a more sort of progressive vision than Jack Layton, who was really more of sort of a not a populist, but someone who was trying to find the political center and steer the NDP toward the center. Bernie, in the scope of American politics, did have a very progressive vision. But I think that's the other thing that we've talked about when it comes with like what's, for people that have this argument of people that say that I have some kind of half-assed analysis of this because of my ignorant Canadianness. And don't you know that there's all these great things going on in local politics and we're doing all these like campaigns and good things are happening. But like, that's the basic question. Like, even if all that organization is going into these local political situations, like what meaningful impact can that actually have on the big major sort of political trends that are steering the entire world off a cliff? As we saw with Bernie, as we saw with Corbyn, when you actually start to pose a threat to the establishment, as Bernie clearly did, they will come together to destroy you, just like a bunch of white blood cells attacking a cancerous tumor. So forgive me for not getting too excited about these like smaller races and mayorships and city council elections, because as we've seen, when someone actually begins to mount a legitimate challenge to power structures in America, these forces come together to ensure that shit is not ever going to happen. I don't know. It's like I feel like I'm being gaslit. Okay, yeah, sorry. Like America's really on the right track. I apologize. Bernie just endorsing Biden's agenda moment one is totally great. America's doing very well. It's on the right path. And the American progressive movement is just knocking it out of the park. Like, is that what you want to hear? Is that what these people want to hear? I guess. I don't know. That doesn't seem to be like an accurate portrayal of like what's actually going on now. We'll always have Central Park. Well, this is what I mean. It's like this when I talk about this. It's not to say that there's no more progressive movement, that there's not some positive things going on. But like this was a legitimate like national movement with millions of people getting extremely energized and excited, and had legitimate like establishment journalists and political figures fucking losing their minds. So excuse me for maybe feeling a small measure of disappointment that that's no longer happening. Was Bree right? I don't know. I don't want to litigate the whole force the vote thing. I think the argument, like if you ignore the whole like speaker vote thing, the argument like should these progressive members of Congress be hostile to the Democratic Party establishment, or should they try and work with them? I mean, I saw the logic for them trying to cozy up to the power centers so they get put on committees and they get these important positions and they get their voices heard. But like, what did that actually accomplish? It kind of seems like all these progressive members of Congress got played like fucking fiddles, who co-signed this whole agenda, went out in the media and tried to like build support for Biden's agenda, and then just got totally hung out to dry as a result. So yeah, I think I don't want to relitigate force the vote. I don't think the whole force the vote argument would have led to any other Americans getting healthcare that didn't have it previously. Should these like progressive members of Congress be openly hostile and antagonistic to the establishment of the party? I kind of think so. Yeah, I do. Almost everyone I know didn't vote for Biden. They voted for, oh God, not Trump again. Yeah, and you know what? I think this is my cancel-worthy of socialist take. I think that's a legitimate reason to go vote for a shitty neoliberal party, because they're not quite as evil and terrible as the other guys. I think that's a perfectly legitimate reason to go vote. But I think also we need to kind of get over this idea that that's like leading to actual progressive change happening. Did you hear about the 9 bridges that are being built over the next 25 years? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, they're gonna push Biden left. That's it. I don't know, folks. Again, I don't even know how much longer I want to talk about this. I thought about maybe looking at some of the replies and everything like that, but it's like, what more needs to be said? I genuinely, really did not think me expressing some mild disappointment or contrasting Bernie's language about taking on the establishment versus what he's doing now was controversial in any way. I really didn't. And people are extremely fucking sensitive about it. And again, like what seems to always happen with me, read into all these things that I wasn't saying, projected a bunch of shit onto it that I wasn't saying, immediately like saying that it's like I'm not allowed to talk about it because I don't live there. You know, people were incredibly sensitive and defensive about this. It's fucking weird. There are a lot of really cool migratory birds to see outside right now. Oh yeah, like what? What do we got? I'm a big fan of cardinals. I now recognize the cardinal song, and then when I hear it, I go and like try and find them wherever they are. Bernie just has to play the game. It's like West Wing and Game of Thrones combined. And it's like, again, I didn't even expect him not to endorse Biden. I didn't expect him to run again. It would have been kind of funny if he had. I don't think it would have really accomplished all that much. A bunch of people would have been really mad about it, which would have been enjoyable. I wasn't expecting that, though. I'm not surprised really that he's endorsing Biden, but I do find it a little bit disappointing. I do find it a little bit depressing and disappointing. I guess. That's my big crime here. That's my big crime. He got behind Biden way too quickly. I mean, that's what I mean. It's like, I didn't expect him not to endorse Biden. I didn't really expect anything. And as you will see in this tweet, as you can see, I didn't suggest otherwise. I did not suggest otherwise. But yeah, I found it a little depressing and fucking sad that after all the talk about a political revolution and taking on the establishment and all that stuff, he instantly he instantly endorses Joe Biden the moment that he says that he's running again. I don't know. Like, that's my big controversial stance on this. Anyway, like I said, if people want to yell at me over this shit, I think that's fine. I think people have exposed themselves for being extremely fucking sensitive and defensive and deranged about this, in my opinion. I think people are really overstating the wonderful things the American progressive movement is doing right now. But, you know, people are free to yell at me over this stuff if they want, as long as they keep it in the context of like actually talking about the point that I'm making and not fucking escalating it to these like drastic levels, which has happened to me in the past. Hillary didn't even endorse him yet. And you know what, I guess is part of it is that someone asked him about it and he just gave an answer. You know, that's part of it too. It's not like he put out a press release or anything. It's just sad. It's fucking depressing. You know? Sorry, it is. I find it depressing. I think it's especially sad given we don't really have any other progressive figures who are ready to grab the baton when Bernie retires. And listen, there's people in the U.S. government and there's plenty of people in the U.S. progressive movement that I think have good ideas about a lot of things. But we've seen over the last year how quickly a lot of these people will immediately support Western imperialism as soon as it's framed in this kind of like certain way, but countering Russian imperialism or whatever it is. We must support NATO this one time. So, and a lot of these progressive members of Congress have done that, you know, have been totally on board with the endless arms transfers to Ukraine, no matter who the fuck's getting those arms. A lot of these progressive members of Congress, even some of these like progressive candidates that people are pointing out as evidence of how the movement is actually alive and well, support Zionism, support Israel. John Fetterman is an example of that. He's got a bunch of very solid progressive values, also a full-on Zionist as well. So yeah, excuse me if maybe I'm a little bit pessimistic about the possibility of progressive change being enacted in America or anywhere else by these kinds of like social democrats or progressives. Have you ever considered you're harshing the brunch crowd? Please someone think of the brunch crowd. But the thing is, non-playable Canadian, this is not the brunch crowd, the people that were the most triggered by this. It was like there were like DSA people and like the progressive social democrat Bernie bro types. It's not the brunch people. Yeah, I think Marianne does have sussy takes on Israel and Palestine as well. They're reading Jacobin at brunch. I don't know. I don't know, folks. Brunch is an elitist concept. I enjoy a nice brunch. I enjoy a nice brunch. I think it's fantastic. Maybe it's the finality of saying the movement was stopped instead of hindered or slowed. They're bent out of shape over semantics. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Again, I seem to have a unique ability to have people project the absolute most uncharitable definition of any single stance that I can possibly outline, no matter how uncontroversial I feel like it should be. I don't know. Do I even need to keep going about this? Do I even need to keep going? I don't even really feel like it, honestly. We could look into the different replies or whatever, but it's like, what's the fucking point? What is the point? I don't know.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk
I mean,
you
he's
through all
81.
this.
He's not up for it. Of course he's not.
TRRS
Yeah,
Friendship
but
Triangle. Thanks for what you do, Rob.
thank you, Pete Cicada, for the 5 months of tier 1. But I think that was the whole thing, Gigi Allendos, is that I wasn't even suggesting that he should run again. I don't even think that he should. Again, I think it would be funny if he did. I'm sure a lot of people would get mad and it would be enjoyable to see the chaos. But like, I wasn't even saying, oh, he needs to run again. Oh, he needs to do this. I was literally just like, this sucks. This is depressing. It's on those dipshits pointing out your location. And again, Americans who are famously never discuss the political situations or news happening in other countries. I would love, like, genuinely, I'm not going to do this because it's like, I don't want to dig into it, but he should have waited for Jesse Ventura to declare so we could endorse a better candidate. Thank you. We could all become Ventura bros. But yeah, I would love to see some of these people do, oh, you're Canadian, blah, 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 and just look at their through their tweets and see if they've tweeted about Bolsonaro, think if they've tweeted about Corbyn, to see if they've tweeted about Israel. You'll notice that a lot of these folks actually often do comment on news that is happening in other countries. This rule about who's allowed to talk about America and who's not seems to be kind of arbitrary and not exactly strictly applied. Yeah, we've needed new blood in government, but it's really expensive to be an elected official. Yeah, and I think seems to be the lesson as well, is that when you try and join that process to change that process, it just ends up changing you the closer you get to these power structures. Leaves a vacuum for someone else to seize more than the national stage, but there's no one, though. I really don't think that that's like something that's going to happen. And if maybe some new big progressive figure will emerge, but like every like young progressive right now, while they might have some really good ideas when it comes to like the social safety net or maybe criminal justice or whatever, all uniformly supported NATO and supported Western imperialism over the last couple of years. They would need decades of credible political action for people to trust them. We've seen too many opportunists. There's just no one else like that. And again, if you look at the trajectory that we're on right now, with like fascism emerging, the climate crisis, like all these huge crises that are affecting our economic system, which we all have, remember, not just America. We all live in kind of a shared country known as capitalism, which was enforced basically at gunpoint by America with Canada as its junior partner. Like when you're talking about this, you know, the progressive movement's doing fine. We're electing all these people in local levels and state level and mayorships and things like that. Great. That's wonderful. But like we're talking about massive, huge, unprecedented, transformative changes that need to happen in order to avert some of these like extreme crises that we're headed towards. And when we're talking about this process of slowly building power through grassroots organizing, which I'm not even saying not to do, but that's a decades-long process. That's a decades-long project. Yeah, we elect local progressives to the national parties collude to
We
crush.
simply
Well, this is kind of
use
what
the
I
computer
mean.
to mark up the size of the account.
What is to be done? TRRS Lenin.
Thank you, Dimitri. That is the question. That is the question. And I definitely encourage more people to make the transition from our revolution to state and revolution. But this is the kind of the point. Rex Cool Guy. We elect local progressives who in the national parties collude to crush. I mean, this is the problem. People point out these examples of progressives that are winning elections in Chicago or wherever else. I think Chesa Boudin in San Francisco is a good example of this. You know, you elect this progressive, DA has really solid criminal justice stances and is trying to work on this within the system to, claw back a little power that the state holds in this this incredibly brutal police state, criminal justice state. And what happens is the media, the cops, and these powerful capitalist forces come together to ensure that they can't do anything and their career is destroyed. When you actually do elect someone that's in this position to threaten power in any way, we've seen it time and time again, how the state comes together to ensure that none of these progressive reforms that these people are caring about actually pass or can come to fruition in any way. Didn't Buffalo... Yes, you're right, Rex. Didn't Buffalo elect a socialist mayor and the Democrat-controlled city council immediately moved to abolish the office of mayor or something like that? Yeah. They immediately came together to ensure that she couldn't actually become the mayor after winning that election or that primary. Yeah, and the sickly fact is, this is what I'm talking about. They point to Brandon Johnson, and again, it's a wonderful victory for anyone that was involved in that campaign, that was organizing, that were taking these lessons of the Bernie movement to apply to that campaign. That's a huge victory. They should be proud of that. But he hasn't even taken office yet, and mainstream media is already going on about how Chicago is in chaos because of him. And we're going to see when the police unions really start to get involved, when he's actually in place, in office. What are the police unions and the media are going to come together to try and destroy his entire agenda? My local DSA got a member on the city council and they governed and voted no different than the people before him. I imagine a lot of people are scared to run for council or mayor because of police unions. I mean, we saw during the George Floyd protest, Netlocked, how a lot of these police unions have more power than the actual elected officials. And when elected officials, even when Bill de Blasio, not exactly this big progressive leader, mildly criticize these police unions, they will come together to fucking destroy them. And they don't do what the elected leaders, democratically elected leaders, want them to do. You saw that in Minnesota. You saw that in New York City. You're going to see it in Chicago, I'm sure. And if I would love to be wrong about it. If I'm wrong, someone can clip this and point it to me and say, look, he really put a dent into the power of these immensely powerful police unions. And I will eat my words. I would be happy to, believe me. I would be happy to. After those protests, what do people say? They say organize, vote for progressive city council members and congressmen and senators and mayors, organize, protest. Well, people organized the largest mass protest movement in American history during those George Floyd protests, and cops under the Biden administration, which Bernie has totally supported at every step of the way, gave cops more money. And cops in America are killing more people today than they were before those protests happened. And those uprisings got brutally crushed by police violence. Absolutely. Organize a train strike. Exactly, yeah. And Bernie's good friend Joe Biden will come in together and shut it down. Yeah, now you have Cop City in Georgia where there's like state-sanctioned executions going on, state-sanctioned firing squads of like forest protectors while they build their Cop City to train more cops to engage in this kind of like guerrilla warfare, like counterinsurgency tactics. And Democrats don't have anything to say about it. Neither of the two Democratic senators in Georgia from the most important election in anyone's lifetime a few years ago have said a fucking word about it. And we're still supposed to be like really excited by this idea of like progressive city council members and mayors, you know? Vote your ass off. People did vote their ass off. You know, they did. They gave the Senate to the Democrats, and what happened? They didn't even pass their agenda that they campaigned on, which Bernie Sanders was tirelessly promoting and banging the drum for in the media and trying to rally support for. No, I did see that. You know, Doug Ford is getting rid of tuition and post-secondary requirements for police programs to create a pipeline of police officers. That's really going to be great. Really, let's make sure cops are even dumber than they are already. That's going to be good. Protect trans people, but vote for the guy who's already walking back doing shit to help trans people being attacked as we speak. Yeah, Matt, I saw Super Black Build. I saw some of your stream where you were talking about the Biden bros. The Biden bros have been fucking come after me now for a couple hours. They're really very upset by my mild criticism of Bernie. I remember after the forest defender was murdered, the Dem rep tweeted some violence on both sides shit and then revealed she'd never heard of Cop City. I mean, a fucking open and shut case is murder. It was state-sanctioned firing squad, and they tried to frame them as being violent or attacking the police, which was obvious bullshit from moment one. Organization means unity of action, unity in practical operations. Organization not based on principle is meaningless and in practice converts the workers into a miserable appendage of the bourgeoisie in power. Maybe that second thought video would be good to look at. Maybe that would be good to look at. You know, I don't want to, how even long have I been talking here? Hour and 50 minutes. I don't want to spend all day talking about this totally innocuous tweet. Did you delete the tepid criticism? No, I'm not going to delete tweets because these fucking weirdos are mad at me. I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I'm not going to spend all day talking about this shit and defending myself from this. There is indigenous resistance. There are exciting movements and developments happening around the world. And that's what I mean, Biggerwig. It's like, I don't want to be completely black-pilled about everything, and we're not. That's why we try to be hopeful on this stream by talking about these geopolitical affairs in countries where we don't live, by the way. We don't live in any of the BRICS countries, but lo and behold, we still find ourselves able to talk about it, able to talk about this de-dollarization process able to talk about this new sort of multilateralism that is rising. That's something that's very exciting to me. That's something that's very optimistic to me. I am pretty pessimistic and cynical about like the West and Canada and the US and the possibility of enacting any kind of major or serious progressive reforms in our political system, where I don't know if this is even possible. But yeah, I don't think we're all hopeless. That's why I usually try to take my cues from the global South and see what's happening in the global South. That's what makes me feel optimistic.
This episode and others like it are made possible by...
It won't come from inside the Imperial Core, you say. I do say that. Yeah. I do say
This
exactly
episode
that.
and others like it are made possible by the generous support of my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to help support
Let's
this
watch
channel,
the second
plus
thought
get
video.
access to our patrons-only Discord server and early access to every video, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/secondthought. A lot of people don't like talking about politics because they think it's too complicated. And if that's you, I don't blame you. The language of politics makes it incredibly difficult to understand what's going on. On the news, political words are very often misused or vaguely applied. Politicians identify with labels that don't describe them, and often reject the labels that do. Similar-looking words mean very different things. And to top it all off, political movements and the words they're associated with change and evolve over time. So a word that means something one day, 50 years later, might mean something else. That's the case for social democracy.
That is a nice
If you've never
word.
heard the term before, that's probably because here in the States, we never use it. Instead, we tend to mislabel social democracy and call it socialism. Think Bernie Sanders or the Nordic countries in Europe. We know them as socialist, but according to most political textbooks and in just about every other country in the world, they're clearly understood as social democratic. There's a difference between these two things, and I'll get to why that difference matters in a second. But in case you don't watch the whole video, in just one sentence, the difference between socialism and social democracy is the relationship with capitalism that each philosophy advocates. For social democrats, capitalism is something that can be contained, reformed, or compensated for. Depending on the social democrat, capitalism is either a necessary evil or a genuinely positive economic model that simply needs to be reined in from its excesses and guided in a positive direction. In contrast, for socialists, capitalism is something that must be replaced by a fundamentally different economic model. One that is not driven by profit and in which production and distribution are organized democratically, not by wealthy and powerful individuals. The socialist goal
And
is
spoiler,
to
the US is
transcend
not a
capitalism.
democracy. No, and I think this is what, for me, as someone who really believed in that Bernie movement, was really excited and inspired by it, as well as the Corbyn movement in the UK, seeing what happened to Corbyn and Sanders made me quite cynical about the possibility of like organizing in the way that we're advocated to, or encouraged to, in order to make this kind of change. And it made me very cynical about the actual level of democracy that we actually have in our society. Because it seems like even when you do use these like these democratic instruments in order to try and claw back power from capital, it seems like they'll use every underhanded trick to destroy you and ensure that that doesn't happen. I'm a boomer trans woman. I voted in every presidential election since 1980. If people think we are weak and don't know how to fight, check out the Stonewall Riot. It was led by two POC trans women. This is the energy we need to put out there. We know how to fight back in the 60s and 70s. F. Anita Bryant, JKR, and fascistic Republicans. And yeah, like I agree with that sentiment as well. I guess the thing that's concerning though is that even that I think has been like the establishment has developed tools to deal with that as well. Like those George Floyd protests were I think an example of how people really did try to take that kind of primal rage they were feeling and express it in this months long, like sustained historic protest movement. And it got brutally put down by police, who ended up getting even more money out of the deal, and are now killing more people than before. And like I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm not even advocating that no one do anything. I'm not saying that, but it's hard to like see these big grassroots movements, whether it's in the political world, like with these, like with the Corbyn movement, the Sanders movement, or those protests, and the way that the state or the establishment came together to crush these movements, and feel a lot of optimism that that we have any kind of control over our destiny. The thing about Tucker Carlson that I'm hearing is apparently he had some weird feud with Rupert Murdoch about like religion stuff, and about like Rupert Murdoch's ex who thought that he was like some kind of prophet, I believe. We did get some Congress folks to kneel in kente cloth. And Marty, I'm not trying to like shit on what you're saying. Like I totally agree with your sentiment, but I guess I'm just like really disillusioned with either the possibility of major progressive change happening from this kind of grassroots organizing or mass protest movements. It seems like the state has kind of figured out ways to completely crush any of these movements. I did see the thing about the Fox News Oppo folder. That's very funny. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing you can be encouraged by, all the infighting in the right that's going on right now with Tucker and with Steven Crowder and Candace Owens and all this stuff. You can enjoy that. They're imploding as well. That's good.
While Social Democrats believe cleaning it up is enough. It wasn't always like this, but since at least the 1959 Godesberg program was ratified by the German Social Democratic Party, Social Democrats have openly rejected the idea of replacing capitalism. In practice, that means that a social democratic country has a capitalist economy, one where the vast majority of productive businesses are owned by just a few people, and profits are businesses' animating drive. This is balanced out by a robust welfare state, safety net, and/or universal public services in health and education. A few utilities and industries especially prone to monopoly may be nationalized, and sometimes even operated by the state. There is wealth redistribution from the wealthy to the poor through taxation, and generally the economy is regulated through indirect means like subsidies or taxes. These are all things that socialists give critical support to as ways to ameliorate capitalism in the short term, but that we don't consider to be nearly enough or the actual end goal. This video will explain why. If you're a social democrat, someone who supports Bernie Sanders, AOC, or looks to countries like Sweden and Denmark as models for what the US could be, odds are we see eye to eye on a lot of things. We most likely agree on social justice, our criticisms of laissez-faire capitalism, and on a number of political issues from climate change to abortion to workers' rights. But for the rest of this video, I'm going to explain why I specifically advocate for socialism on this channel and not social democracy. It's not.
I mean, even the whole idea, I mean, this has never sit right with me exactly as well. The whole idea of like, oh, I'm a Democrat. Don't worry, I'm not one of these scary socialists. I'm a democratic socialist, you see. Don't worry, I'm a democratic socialist, which implies that socialism is not democratic, which, as we've seen from countless examples, is not accurate and is actually a kind of chauvinistic way of looking at political organization. You know, I'm one of the good ones. No, I don't support, of course I don't support Venezuela or Cuba or any of these things. I mean, even Bernie's mild support for Cuba in the 80s got thrown in his face. After he won Nevada and the whole establishment was shitting his pants, all they talked about afterwards was Bernie supporting literacy programs, you know? But it's, oh no, don't worry, I don't support China, I don't support the Soviet Union, I don't support Venezuela, don't worry about that. I just want America to be more like Sweden, that's all. A little bit messed up as well. Yeah, respectability politics for sure. Yeah, and notice how it doesn't win anyone any points. You know, Bernie still got framed as like, oh, he's going to come to Central Park and like behead Chris Matthews.
Bring back Mao and give him a mech suit.
Gone wrong. Thank you for the 11 months tier 1. That is my politics as well. I agree.
Not to be dogmatic or sectarian or to throw away pragmatism, nor is it to have a book measuring contest to see which of us is the most left-wing and call that a victory. It's because the historical record, political theory, and our present context all show that when it comes to the goals we share for a more egalitarian, just, and sustainable world, capitalism isn't something that we can rehabilitate. It always fights back. And when it's kept on a leash instead of being replaced, it always wins.
Yeah, thank you, Moss.
In other words, social democracy is too unstable and incomplete for the results we're all looking for. First,
What did someone say about social democracy? Objectively, the moderate wing of fascism, I believe someone said. I can't remember who exactly said that, but it does kind of make a lot of sense sometimes when you think about it.
Unstable and incomplete for the results we're all looking for. First, the most basic objection that we socialists have with social democracy is that it's still capitalism. That may be obvious, but just to remind you, capitalism is an absurd economic system, where a tiny unelected minority of people get the vast majority of people to work for them so that they can get wealthier. Due to the inherent nature of capitalism, a few people own an ever-shrinking number of companies, and everyone else fights over the crumbs that fall off the table. Even in social democracies, the vast majority of people don't elect their boss. They don't have a say in the decisions that affect whether they have a job or not. And their work makes that unelected, unaccountable guy richer. For an ideology with democracy in the name, social democracy notably fails to provide democracy in the place where you spend most of your waking hours. High unionization and tripartite negotiations between the state, capitalists, and labor make that better than under a pure laissez-faire approach, but they still only balance the scales between the one guy at the top of the company and the 99 people who work there. They don't actually account for the number of people on each side the way a democracy would. They only make sure that the one guy doesn't go too far and still gets most of the money. And regardless, people in any capitalist society are bound to the profit motive. So the decisions workers make in this marginally better situation, even if they had full democratic agency, still need to produce a profit for their company and their economy. So the typical capitalist race to the bottom still applies, as everyone tries to outcompete for higher profit margins. But that's domestically, where workers' exploitation is relatively low and compensated for by a good safety net and universal amenities. Salaries in social democracies are high and public services are great. The problem with social democracy is that in order for capitalists to make good profits under this arrangement, where they pay their workers slightly better and don't get to hoard as much, somebody, somewhere, needs to be exploited a lot more. And that's where the Global South comes in. For social democracies to provide their citizens their...
I think a lot of moderate socialism assume that there's some level of reform or restriction that capital won't fight violently against. For sure, Rex. And I think that's something that I used to believe that as well. And that's why the amazing thing about like Jeremy Corbyn, like we can Sanders is another example as well, but Corbyn, who's like a fucking harmless old jam making grandpa, who had like a vision to bring Britain back to like a little bit more of the socialist tradition, the social safety net that like built the previous generation, you know? The NHS and all these big things that they've held up as these wonderful examples of their enlightened society, who had a few critiques of imperialism, who criticized Israel a little bit, who criticized the role that imperialism plays in the world and in these kind of conflicts in the war on terror. Fucking harmless, who worked within the system to build this big mass movement. And look how capital came together to destroy that. That was the lesson for me of Sanders and Corbyn, is that there's no level of respectability that you can get to that you will not have the state and capital come together to fucking destroy you. There is no level of respectability or mild reforms that you get nothing. You get nothing. The moment you threaten them in any way, or you threaten their profits in any way, they will come for you and they will destroy you. I always love the idea they just hand some young hotshot the keys to the entire apparatus. You won fair and square. That's right. You got the most votes. Here you go. You're in charge now. No, that's not how that works. The Willy Wonka voice, exactly. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir. Enjoy the entire kingdom. Just have a good time. Yeah. No, that's not how it's going to work. I'm sorry to say. And all that energy and all that work that it takes to build power through that, in that decades long grassroots process, it all just goes to, that's what it leads to. That's what it leads to, you know?
High standard of living and capitalists their profits, the global poor need to be taken advantage of. Let's talk about H&M for a second. H&M is a Swedish brand known for shirts that say stuff like, "My other car is Bing chilling," and shockingly, other horrible decisions. H&M is of course the second largest fashion retailer in the world, with profits in the billions of dollars. And to achieve that status, the company relies on the cheapest labor it can find. Its wealth is built on the extremely polluting fast fashion model, which is the clothing world's version of planned obsolescence. It's been found guilty of greenwashing on multiple occasions, contracts from factories that sure do seem to catch on fire a lot, and of course it doesn't pay its workers a living wage.
I agree with that.
Something it promised to do back in 2013 when people found out, but come 2018 when H&M said it would have sorted all this out, the company hit us with the classic freshman year economics, what even is a living wage? No, really, the company said there is no universally agreed level for living wages, and then kept paying its workers like garbage. I'm using H&M.
But a shameful admission, sloppy dong Melosa dick, I will cop to kind of liking some of the clothes. Okay? I'm sorry. I have a black H&M jacket and I still wear it. It's kind of nice. It's kind of nice with it. I'm sorry, okay? Don't cancel me.
As a recognizable example here, but this kind of behavior is by no means unique to this brand. The problem with social democracy is that Swedish workers would never be treated the way H&M treats its workers in the global south. But it's okay with it happening to workers employed by a Swedish company somewhere else in the world. And thanks to the fact that it does, people in Sweden get cheap clothes, and the taxes on the company back home allow the government to provide great public services. Now, this isn't different from any other capitalist country, mind you. It's not a problem unique to social democracy, and that's the point. Social democracy is built on the principles of justice and egalitarianism, but the fact that it benefits from exploitation and imperialism, particularly of this kind, shows the limits that a social democracy runs into when it agrees to follow the rules of global capitalism, which it has to. Like other capitalist countries, in order for the line to consistently go up, wealth needs to be extracted from poorer countries. If you want to learn more about...
Same with me, Rex. If it weren't for Bernie, I wouldn't be in here talking about mass redacting capitalists. I agree. And like I said, I give Bernie a ton of credit. I will always have a huge amount of respect and admiration for Bernie, regardless of whatever problems he might point out or whatever, you know? I do. He's been a central figure in my sort of political journey. But I think we do have to be able to maybe mildly criticize some people, even people that we admire and respect, you know, without losing our fucking minds. Like someone just assaulted our grandpa or whatever. I think we can do both of those things. You know, I don't think it's that hard, but it's just me. I'm built different.
That, I did a whole video on it a while back, and the Marxist Project also has a really great summary of the different ways capitalist imperialism works. But let's shift the focus back to the domestic situation. Another reason that socialists aren't social democrats is because in social democracies, the power of the capitalist class must always be catered to or society suffers the consequences. Under social democracies, progressive politics aren't gains made by the working class, but concessions granted to them by the ruling capitalist class that can be taken away at any moment. That's because under social democracy, capital retains tremendous power, which it can use in things like capital strike.
Just get to know a weaver and a tailor, and you can pick up some clothes on your way to re-up your artisanal insulin and your eyeglasses. Good thing if you're in an anarchist utopia and you don't live next to someone that just likes making eyeglasses, sucks to be you. That's not a good situation. Unfortunately, it's like I really need glasses, but there's just no one around here that wants to do it. So I guess I'm SOL. Just have to be blind, I guess. That's right.
A capital strike, like a labor strike, happens when capital refuses to work. Except capitalists don't actually work, so really a capital strike is when capitalists refuse to invest, sitting on their hands and piles of cash, and or deciding to move their capital to another country in what's called capital flight. Because social democratic societies protect the sanctity of private capital like all capitalist societies do, meaning that they are very apprehensive of expropriating capital even in times of crisis where literally one person can screw over hundreds of others, social democracies are incredibly vulnerable to backpedaling. When capitalists get a whiff of progressive social policies that could hurt their bottom line, like an upcoming set of nationalizations, minimum wage increases, a shortening of the work week, more holidays, public health care, or anything else that makes life better for everyone but makes big companies less money, capital just sits it out and sends the economy into a tailspin. Suffice it to say that governments would prefer to avoid this situation, so progressive legislation is curtailed before it's even started. And in the cases where social democratic states take the gamble and capitalists respond with a strike, social democratic governments find themselves unable to take control of the production process themselves and are forced to appease capitalists by screwing over workers and imposing austerity politics. What's great about this process, from the capitalist point of view, is that it happens almost automatically. In a capitalist economy, the government always has to make sure that its economy is hospitable to profit-making, and therefore investment. This means that capitalists don't necessarily need to be occupying government positions or even be conscious of what they're doing. They just need to know that if the government does something they don't like, they can put their money elsewhere or stop investing. And the government knows that if it does something that lowers investments, their economy might suffer. Each actor can act with relative autonomy from one another, but because they are doing so within the same set of rules, maximizing profits for the capitalist class, they'll often naturally come to an agreement that keeping poverty around and forcing people into mind-numbing work most days of the week and most waking hours of the day is what's best for the economy. Add to that fact that capitalists can influence the government more directly by becoming elected members within it comparatively easily, financing the campaigns of people who are friendly to their interests, or owning mass media institutions that parrot their talking points, and you realize how vulnerable social democracy is by keeping capitalist power around. Not to belabor the point, but 1% of people holding the other 99% hostage by threatening to stop financing the economy when things don't go their way isn't democracy. In contrast, the socialist response of running the economy without capitalists by bringing investment into democratic hands avoids this problem domestically. Socialists still run into the problem of what to do about international capital, but this is something that can be solved by the collaboration of multiple socialist economies, so it's not insurmountable. Social democracy, however, has neither the domestic nor the international means to respond to a capitalist backlash. And this isn't just a theoretical weakness of social democracy. It's been seen in practice many times, and we're even seeing it today. Back in the 80s, for example, France elected François Mitterrand to be its president. Mitterrand sailed into the presidency on the promise of being a radical social democrat, bringing the mixed economy model to France with the surprising backing of the Communist Party. He did all the things I listed earlier, raised the minimum wage, nationalized a few industries, gave people more holidays and a shorter work week, raised pensions, invested in high-speed rail, all sorts of good stuff that made people's lives meaningfully better almost overnight. But just 2 years in, capital responded. Foreign and domestic investment.
Yeah, I see you, second thought, doing your French pronunciation. Don't think we didn't see that. He did a great job.
Investments dried up, and Mitterrand had to completely reverse course in what was called the austerity turn. Multiple nationalized industries were reprivatized, public spending on things like social security was massively cut.
You see, this is the whole gag we do about the Rousseau Institute of Western Destabilization. This is the way we talk about whenever there's anyone, in any country that's advocating for that kind of a platform or a program, raising the minimum wage, lowering the work week, giving people vacation time, healthcare, education, any of that stuff. We said, well, they're becoming destabilized. Anyone that's pursuing that kind of a program, it's becoming very unstable. That's why America has to come in there militarily or, through covert means and capital has to strike in order to restore stability to these regions.
You
That's
can
how we
count on
talked about
me.
these
You're going to have
things.
good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Rob, I'm taking a much-needed Twitter vacation.
Lily, thank you very much for the 13 months of Prime. I think it's a good idea. I think I should be doing the exact same thing. That's a very good idea, Lily. I should be following your advice on that one. People are being very mean to me right now, Lily. People are being very cruel, very nasty. To this guy. To this guy. Can you believe that? Can you imagine? Imagine being nasty to this. I know. I don't get it either. I don't get it either.
And new taxes were imposed on workers. It was a brutal blow to the French working class, and a total betrayal of the promises that Mitterrand got elected on. And Sweden's gone down the same path, just a bit more slowly and more recently. To quote a 2016 article in Forbes, just so you know I'm not using socialist sources here, over the past 2 decades, the country has undergone a transformation built on deregulation and budget self-restraint with cuts to Sweden's welfare state. Sweden's government shrank jobless and disability benefits to encourage employment. The lower benefits allowed for tax cuts. The inheritance tax was scrapped in 2005, and the wealth tax was canned 2 years later. The result? Inequality in Sweden has skyrocketed. Quoting not from Forbes this time, in 2002, Sweden's top 1% owned 18% of all household wealth. By 2017, it had risen to 42%.
We are starting to use this
and,
Substack
quote,
notes,
the
yeah.
country's poorest 30%
That's
have
plus
no
5
net
more
wealth at
democracy
all,
points for Sweden.
merely net debts. This is what makes the difference between social democracy and socialism. At any given time, the economy can crumble not because of a natural disaster, a global pandemic, a sudden shortage, a war, a military coup, or a lost election, but just because things got too good for everyday people and they weren't as exploitable as before.
And a lot of this, too, is exactly why when we talk about China and the role that capitalism plays with China, is exactly why you can see clearly that it is a different system, even though that they do use capitalism in this way. They use that mode of production. But you don't see, there's not a capital strike in China. You know, what happens if Chinese capitalists try to go on capital strike? Well, something bad's going to happen to them. Because there you have the state in control of capital rather than the inverse, which is what we live under. You know? And the state is actually using capitalism in order to build that program of making people's lives demonstrably better. And they don't have a really say in the matter. And if they do have a problem with it, that becomes a problem for them rapidly. Yeah, they learned capitalism from Marx on how to properly manage capital. And that's exactly why. And you see this 2 totally different ways of doing things and managing capital in this way. You see that it's really trite and not even accurate to just hand wave it away or dismiss all those accomplishments away as being like, oh, it's capitalist. You know, it's clearly not. If it was, then you would see the same kind of process playing out there. Best wishes to King Windows GF and community member Castellafron. You can't forget to eat. What's going on with that? You gotta eat. If you say China's capitalist, you have to contend with why the CPC was able to lift hundreds of millions of people out of extreme poverty and why other capitalist countries in the global south have been unable to do so. Exactly, and I think the high-speed rail thing is a great example of that. We looked at this a couple months ago, and that one weird dipshit guy was saying, like, did you know about the high-speed rails? It's not even profitable. Did you know that? There's these, like, Chinese billionaires that are heavily in debt from subsidizing this massive infrastructure project, and it's like, where's the problem exactly? What is the problem with that? Why do we care? You're saying they're using capital to build this massive infrastructure project that people can use that improves people's lives, and they're not doing it because of the profit motive, but because building infrastructure is what they need to do to develop their country? You're telling me that, and we're supposed to not be happy about that? I don't know. Why are we concerned about that? Is China capitalist? Is an unmarxist question, as VJ says. I mean, it's right there in the fucking books about the transition from capitalism to socialism. This has been written about by, Marx and by Marxist scholars, including Lenin and other figures. Instead, we have Elon about to be massively in debt because he can't stop making 420 jokes, while not building infrastructure that helps people, but only building a bunch of bullshit that no one wants or needs.
To resist these tendencies takes tremendous political will, tremendous social engagement, and extremely high unionization. Things that can be chipped away at for years by capitalists and that can easily go out the window when the end of the month is looking lean. It's not that social democracy isn't better than what we're currently living through in the US.
You're on the road. I mean, it's a process. It's a decades-long process, this idea of building socialism, and each country that's engaging in this process is doing so with their own extremely unique cultural and economic and political and material conditions. And each country that is engaged in this process is going to make mistakes. There's going to be contradictions. It's not, as people, it's not a process of just pressing the socialism button overnight, as we joke about, It's a long process. It takes a long time, and all these places that are engaging in this process in different ways are coming at it from a totally different angle.
It undeniably is. Making the US follow the Nordic model would ease the burden on millions of people overnight. The problem is that if we ever get that, it will always contain within itself the seeds of its own destruction, and will demand from us that we continue to brutally exploit our fellow human beings on the other side of the world. This doesn't mean socialism is better by default. I'll let my other videos and those of other great creators on this website make the case for that. But when it comes to these problems, socialism has the answer.
I agree.
I mentioned at the beginning of this video that my channel is only possible thanks.
I agree with that. And talk about this idea, the capital strike. Talk about the ways that capital comes together to dismantle movements, even movements that are not that radical. Of just this basic idea of, let's have a better social democracy. Let's have a better social safety net. Let's fund schools. Let's cut funding from the military. Let's give people universal health care. Just these basic ideas. And this is how people responded. I want the highlight reel.
I think this is going to be very frustrating for pundits, very frustrating for...
And for the people that were mad about this benign tweet and saying no, actually the Bernie movement wasn't defeated. No, the Bernie movement, the progressive movement is doing these amazing things. The Bernie movement is involved in all these local elections and all these local races. Okay, fine, great. That's wonderful. And I'm very happy for you. There's nothing, I don't think there's anyone would argue this, there's nothing approaching this level of a huge national movement that had that level of energy and excitement, and that was literally fucking terrifying people in the Democratic Party establishment, in the media, and the capitalists in America. They were shitting their fucking pants over this. And I'm sorry, there is nothing going on like that remotely approaches that at this time. And in my tweet that people were getting mad at, I was expressing some mild disappointment with that.
I think
this is what was happening.
This is going to be very frustrating for pundits, very frustrating for media consultants and everyone who's trying to figure this out logically. Bernie Sanders is walking away with it. He's doing it now. He's probably going to win his third contest today, big time.
The happiest person right now, it's about 1:15 Moscow time. This thing is going very well for Vladimir Putin. I promise you. He's probably staying up watching us right now. How you doing, Vlad?
That's absolutely right.
I'm wondering whether the Democratic moderates want Bernie Sanders to be president. I mean, that's maybe too exciting a question to raise. They don't like Trump at all. Do they want Bernie Sanders to take over the Democratic Party in perpetuity?
Largely people of color, of those, the majority are Latino, and they are clearly, at least from eyeballing it, strongly in favor of Bernie Sanders, with Joe Biden coming in second.
No one else is as hungry, angry, enraged, and determined as Sanders voters. Democrats need to sober up and figure out what the hell they're going to do about that.
Well, do about what? That's what you want. That's what you fucking want. You want people to be excited and engaged. Why is that bad? Like, what are they going to do to stop this? What are they going to do to stop this? And people are arguing with me when I say that the establishment successfully managed to, like, at the very most charitable reading, co-opt that movement. Really? People are still arguing with me about this?
Reading last night about the fall of France in the summer of 1940, and the General Renault calls up Churchill and says, "It's over." And Churchill said, "How can it be? You got the greatest army in Europe. How can it be over?" He said, "It's over." So I had that suppressed feeling.
We are fortunate to be able to talk to James Carville.
Well, I won't mention names, but I get any number of calls from panicked congressional incumbents. I know what's happening out there. I got a real good idea.
Is part of the blame that the media shoulders in this is that we respond to the squeaky wheels?
The entire theory that by expanding the electorate, increasing turnouts, you can win an election is the equivalent of climate denial. All right? When people say that, they're as stupid to a political scientist as a climate denier is to an atmospheric scientist. If you're voting for him because you think he'll win the election, because he'll galvanize heretofore sleepy parts of the electorate, then politically you're a fool.
So you're describing what sounds a lot like political suicide, and I think we need a psychologist to understand that.
I
They
want
were
you to
fucking
call
terrified.
Tom Steyer and tell him how the cow ate the
Hey,
cabbage.
$27.
I want you to call him and tell him to take all those millions of dollars that he has spent in Nevada to get nothing, and all the millions he spent in South Carolina, and all the few votes he's getting, he needs to be spending that money making sure voters understand the choices they have in this primary between now and the end of March.
Yeah,
But the Sanders campaign and the Trump campaign, they've taken these things to dark arts of abusing the press, of bullying the press. I mean, what do we miss in terms of paying attention to a squeaky, angry minority and ignoring the majority?
If I gave you a ballroom with all the candidates on the Democratic side, not named Bernie, and what happened in that ballroom stayed in that ballroom, what would you say to them gathered together the day after the Nevada caucuses?
I just say we got to win.
The narrative that you're starting to see play out, Chris, is that there are people that are concerned, strategists that are concerned, that Bernie Sanders being the top of the ticket will force us to lose the House.
Because if he's the nominee, that's the top of your ticket. That's the top of your ticket for Senate races, House races, gubernatorial, everything. Figure out what you're going to do, because that's looking likely.
I don't necessarily think that's the case. It's
How about
early.
losing the future?
It's early.
Everybody knows the issue now is going to be Bernie versus some alternative. Not necessarily a moderate. It could be Elizabeth Warren. But there has to be some alternative. We're not going to have a real contest here. Bernie's going to walk away with it. The whole thing, all the way to Milwaukee. So how do you get an alternative? But he has to explain to him at some point, why has he been so adventurous with these left-wing regimes around the world? Explain his view in the Cold War. I think he just had to explain. I don't think he's on the red side or anything or disloyal. I think he just had to explain what socialism means to him today.
And this is what I'm talking about. You know, these people were fucking terrified. These people were terrified. There was this big national movement that had these very powerful people legitimately fucking losing their minds. And again, I'm sorry, I can't look back on that time and look back on the language that Bernie was using at that time and compare and contrast it to what Bernie's saying right now, being just a cheerleader for the Biden administration for the last couple of years, and then immediately just endorsing him on day one and be like, man, that's kind of disappointing. It kind of seems like the establishment that Bernie was talking about defeating did actually stop his movement. Is that really that fucking outrageous? Is that really that outrageous of a conclusion to come to about this? You know? Really? We look at that clip, we look at the language Bernie was using, and we look at what he's doing now and say, like, it kind of seems like the establishment did, in fact, stop the movement. And people say, "Whoa, God, what? How dare you? Fucking grow up." Oh my goodness. What is he doing endorsing Biden? And that's the thing. It's like, I don't even expect him to do anything else. You know, maybe waiting a couple days might have been nice. I don't know. But it really is just a matter of saying, like, this is disappointing and, like, upsetting that this is happening.
Count on me.
And it does kind of look like the establishment that Bernie was talking about did actually defeat him, did stop him. Excuse me. Thank you, Ribbons, for the tier 1 sub. Brand new community member, Ribbons. Hello, Ribbons. Thank you. Like, we can't look at those two things and, like, look with this guy. This is the one guy I'm going to look at. This is the original Dark Brandon guy. By allowing this fucking political genius says, by allowing one man to become 81 years old, Democrats have killed the progressive movements in the United States. Again, not the point that I was making whatsoever. Literally I wasn't saying that Bernie needs to run. I wasn't saying that Bernie needs to fucking endorse Marianne Williamson. I was not saying any of this shit. I'm literally just saying, yes, the establishment did come together and stop that movement. When you look at what was going on then, what he was saying then, the language he was using versus what he's saying now, and say, that's a little bit disappointing. And these motherfuckers just can't wrap their minds around this. You make whatever point they want. And that's what I mean. It's like fucking people just graft whatever. I don't know if this is a unique problem to me. I know it's an online thing, but the people that just like bend over backwards to just give the most uncharitable possible reading to something that I say that's so fucking uncontroversial, to say that yes, the establishment did actually stop him and have killed the progressive movement in the United States. And like I've said before, folks, as I've said before, there is plenty of things going on in the progressive movement still. It's not like it's completely gone away or anything like that.
This is some guy,
There's
Rob
nothing,
Russo,
though, that
some
approaches what we were
leftist
just
based in
looking at.
Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
There is nothing that the progressive movement is doing in America that's actually a threat to capital and a threat to these power structures in the way that that moment was. Nothing. Hello, Zach. Thanks for the raid. Welcome, Zach Raiders. Hello. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hello. Anyway, I was really annoyed by that take. I find that guy annoying. Not at all the point that I was making. A deliberately uncharitable interpretation of like what I was actually saying, which again I don't think is controversial in any way. What is wrong with my tweet? I don't see anything wrong with it in either direction. It's a great question, Matt. Great question. You tell me, because there's hundreds of people that are fucking like peeing their fucking pants over it. You know? It seems like I'm just bummed. Yeah, I am bummed. Because, yeah, you look at that clip of people in the media fucking losing their minds like that versus Bernie now just being like an enthusiastic, loyal supporter of the Biden agenda. And, yeah, it's fucking depressing. Like, Jesus Christ. And there's the video of the media hit there if you want. I'm bummed because I remember what it felt like in February 2020 when it seemed like we're on the cusp of a breakthrough. I know. exactly. And me too. That was a really exciting moment for people around the world. I know Americans think that only the things that happen in the American government only affects them. People around the world were like amazed and excited by that. And yeah, it's fucking depressing that like that's where that has gone. I guess everyone is just mad and looking to act like they're not. It certainly seems like that, yes. It certainly does seem like that. So many replies saying Bernie was about starting a movement, and it's like, okay, he's stepping up to lead the movement now. Well, that's the question. Like, there's nothing that resembles that. And like I said before, I'll acknowledge again, in case anyone's joined us, that hasn't been around, but like, yeah, there's plenty of things going on state level and local level and mayorships and people running for city council meetings and all kinds of important and interesting and exciting things. But like, there's nothing on the scale of this mass national movement that was visibly terrifying these fucking ghouls in the media and in the Democratic Party establishment. Nothing. Like, there's not. Bernie is trying to get labor going, which isn't looking good. Yeah, and to his credit, he is doing that. And again, Bernie does and says a lot of good stuff that I think is fantastic. And then his good friend Joe Biden is like breaking rail strikes while calling himself the most pro-union president that's ever been elected. I don't know. I thought it was very bizarre, honestly, the people freaking out over that tweet. Very fucking bizarre. The chat's flying today. We got a lot of discourse. It's the discourse zone. Do 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 do. Imagine a world when every innocuous statement you made is uncharitably interpreted by hundreds of extremely defensive American chauvinists. Imagine a world where Americans suggest that you're only allowed to talk about the political affairs in one country if you live within the borders. This is the discourse zone.
Fuck. You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
83RN13.
OnlyFacts, thank you very much for the 15 months of Tier 1. I appreciate that, OnlyFacts. And I will just take a moment now. I'm 2 hours into this stream today. I'm Australian. I speak for all Australians. Thank you, Zach. I already knew that about you. I know that you're the official representative of Australia. I didn't even care about this, nor was I surprised when I read about it last night. I have bigger dreams now, like wanting Sam Seder to fuck Stephen Rough-Trade Crowder's ex-wife. Oh my goodness. Johnny, I started reading that comment and then it went off in a crazy direction. My lord. Oh my. Folks, evidently there's plenty of people on the internet that don't appreciate the commentary that I do about politics in America or elsewhere. Apparently there's plenty of people that don't enjoy it. They don't think I add anything. They don't think that I have anything interesting or important to say. And they want me to just go away. But if you are one of these brave free thinkers that do appreciate the commentary that I do about America or Canada or whatever fucking country. We talk about things going on all over the world, including the global hegemon of America. If you appreciate the commentary that I do, well, the only way that I am able to come on Twitch every single day and do this show and articulate some of these viewpoints is due to the incredibly generous support. Thank you, CC Series. Thank you. I appreciate that. The incredibly generous support from the community members of this community. It's thanks to Bezos. That's absolutely right. He very generously, Jeff Bezos very generously allows me to keep 50% of the subs that I move on this show. So if you do support this show and support this content, folks, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to TRRS. If you're a regular returning community member, an elite community member, or if you're a new viewer or a lurker that just found yourself here today and you appreciate the commentary that I do on this, please, if you can, subscribe to TRRS. You get all the emotes, some of the best emotes on this whole platform. Join the best community on this platform.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And join Twitch's only two-dimensional triangle-shaped friendship access and trickle-down clout tiered reward system. Thank you, anonymous gifter. I feel like that was supposed to be a gag gift, and I don't even understand the gag.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
TRRS Sankara TRRS Friendship Triangle TRRS Rob Mode 2.
We watched the new Alice video about how the U.S. controls Thailand's elections last night, and I don't know how anyone can say the U.S. is not an empire. Well, that's the amazing thing, too. If it's like, how dare people that don't live here have any kind of commentary about what's going on in the American government when America's out there fucking engaging with the world like that. Thank you, DJ Chimp, for the 300 friend coin. I really appreciate that, DJ Chimp. And thank you, CCC Reese, as well, for the gifted sub. Thank you for that. Have you seen the film The Big Short? Yes, I have. And I like it. It's good. I enjoy it a lot. We do have a close hype train now. So again, I don't think I have too much longer to stay today. I'm just too tired. I can't stay for the 4 hours or whatever I'm supposed to do. So if you do support the work that I do here, if you want to make me feel mildly better from having all these like democratic socialists like mad at me for my totally mild, cold take about Bernie Sanders, please subscribe or gift subs to the program. It's very, very helpful. I appreciate it a lot, and it helps this content stay on the air. If that's what you want, if that's what you want, that's the only way that it can happen. Ambiguous, but it does trickle down, though. It does. Truly a great community. I have some misgivings now that it's confirmed that you're Canadian. Yeah, I am pretty open and honest about this. I do not try to hide this. I know it's upsetting for some people, but I do not try to hide this.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Gen X Bushy, thank you very, very much for the 5 gifted subs. I really appreciate that. Bailing me out yet again. Thank you, Gen X Bushy.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Jasmine Shanae, thank you for the 6 months of Prime. Thank you, Jasmine. I am Canadian, and it is in fact very upsetting. And believe me, no one is as unhappy about it as I am. Believe me. Come on. Yeah, I don't know if I can handle how cold that take is. Just freezing cold, frigid take. The Democratic Party establishment came together to stop the Bernie movement. What? How dare you? How dare you say that, Canadian? Okay. All right. We got a hype train, folks. We got a hype train. In fact, we're 92% of the way to level 3 of this hype train. And in fact,
you can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to
one generous chatter, such as Ryalon86. Thank you for the gifted sub. I appreciate that, Ryalon. Thank you. Support local rail workers is a good excuse. Unlike pro-union strike-breaking President Brandon, who Bernie Sanders, for all the incredible things he's accomplished, has like loyally supported over the last few years. Did Bernie even say anything about that broken strike? You'd think that he's been very good on labor issues and talking about that, but you'd think that maybe he would.
You can count on me.
Mention
You're gonna
that,
have good
you know?
old Rob
Maybe you would
to
mention
talk
that.
you through all this.
TRRSMRX.
Thank you, Don Dark Sony, for the 29 months of Tier 1 and for all the support, Don Dark Sony. Thank you. Yeah, Venus, like it does seem like some kind of command came down. It's like no more criticizing. No more criticizing. Or remember when that whole thing when Sirota and what's her name? When they called Biden corrupt, remember that? That was actually a great when I talked to Sirota about this. It was a great conversation. Zephyr. Yeah. What is her last? She's got a Zephyr teach out. Thank you. When Zephyr teach out and Sirota accused Biden of being corrupt, and Bernie was like, "No, we need to walk this back," and punished them and like benched them both. It was really fascinating when I got to talk to Sirota about that moment as well, because Sirota was like, "It was great. Everyone was freaking out. We had made this criticism. Everyone was talking about it. We're trying to win an election." And they like got in trouble for doing that, for saying Biden's corrupt. Bernie's last tweet about the rail strike was November 30th. Biden broke the strike on December 2nd.
But oh, there it is.
Thank you for another gifted sub, Don Dark Sony. I appreciate that. Thank you. We get the lesser of two evils, with the more evil side getting more evil every year and the less evil side also getting more evil. That's right. And like I said, I think it's a legitimate reason to vote for a shitty neoliberal party, you know? Yeah, they're evil. They want to give more money to cops. They're imperialists. They're maybe like, they don't want to do a genocide against trans people and the other side does. So to me, if you feel like you live in a place where your vote matters, which is not a lot of people live in those actual places, you know, I think that's totally legitimate. But let's not pretend that that's some part of like, you know, that's how political change is going to happen, or that like the Democratic Party isn't just like a tool to totally co-opt and kill like any grassroots progressive movement. Like that's the whole purpose of the Democratic Party. Is that controversial? I'm sorry to keep fixating on this. Is that really controversial? Saying that the Democratic Party exists to like co-opt and dissipate progressive social movements? Really? Why are people upset about that? It's so weird. That is so bizarre. Well, that's it. It's very controversial if you're a lib. Which is funny because like all these people in 2016 and 2017 or whatever, like, well, fuck the Democratic Party, fuck the libs. And then I say like, oh, the Democratic Party kind of co-opted Bernie's movement, and they get super upset and defensive over it. Jesus. Maybe if they picked a fight and went to the mat on one issue, I'd be more sympathetic. Yeah, I mean, are you talking about like the Democratic Party? Matt? Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I'm the one that lives in a state where it matters. And I only vote D in national elections because I don't want to be eradicated. Yeah, it's like that's a totally fucking legitimate reason. While not getting any like illusions about like the role that the Democratic Party plays or the Democratic Party's like hostility or openness to progressive movements. I don't know. I was honestly very perplexed by a lot of that controversy. You know what? I think I'm gonna go. I really want to be able to do this stream for like at least 3 hours. I would like ideally for this stream, I like to do it for 4 hours. I think that's kind of the sweet spot in terms of like being able to like, you know, get the support that I need to do in order to do it. I'm just too fucking tired. I'm too tired. I barely slept last night because I was stressed out from people being mean to me. What's this, Johnny? Let me take a look at this before I go here. I've been informed that during tomorrow's floor session, there'll be a motion to either censure or expel me. I've also been told I'll get a chance to speak. I will do as I always have done, rise on behalf of my constituents in defense of my community and for democracy itself. What is Zoe being censored for? Oh, for being trans. Okay, good. Yeah, wonderful. Good. But just work within the system. Yeah, just work within the system. And when you do, you can make this kind of incremental change. They think she was being too rude with her words in session. That's fucking rich. Anyway, thanks for watching the stream today, folks. And I honestly, I appreciate not just the people that support the stream, but just the fact that, like, you know, when people are yelling at me, it's stupid. I should have a thicker skin. Like I said, I do have a pretty thick skin, but I'm somewhat traumatized by incidents in the past where people have gone way, way overboard over this kind of stuff. So inevitably, I get very anxious when this kind of shit's going on. And I appreciate people coming to hang out in the community today and talk about these things sensibly, have an actual, like, nuanced, important discussion about it. You know, I don't feel like I'm on some isolated island or whatever when there's people here that are like, seem to understand what I was saying and aren't bending over backwards to read it as uncharitably as possible. So I appreciate that a lot. I appreciate each and every one of you. Chat, thank you. Oh, good. Shit's not working again. Wonderful. Wunderbar. Well, looks like you'll have to keep streaming for another 4 hours. That's right. Thanks again, folks. Thank you. I enjoyed hanging out with you all today. I enjoyed this discussion. Thank you for continuing to tune into this show each and every day, for those of you that do. And if you're a new chatter or a new lurker, or if you're just new to the community for the first time today, thank you for joining. Please join the Discord server. If you're not in there already, it's where this community kind of lives when the stream's offline, and a significantly healthier environment than Twitter certainly is. Thank you for not being a cult. You're welcome. That's my pleasure. It's my pleasure, Biggerwig. Johnny. Yours is going to get there. Okay? So give my regards to David Tavarish. I'll be back tomorrow, or I should be. Until then, take care. Goodbye.